All right, guys. Hey, wanted to cover a drafting clinic in the latest G2 versus Vitality game. Up until now, teams have been really calibrating to the match and to the patch rather, and understanding, hey, this is what's good in this patch. This is a little bit of a unique situation because there's more than one sort of like unique style that's been generally good. Like both forwards and backwards comps are good. We've been seeing the Kaisa, we've been seeing the traditional sort of Ash Varus sort of stuff. We've been seeing a lot of dynamics as well, forming with something like the Corki pick. Do we respond with poke and kind, or do we actually go for something more aggressive? We match the Yone matchup. It's been a very interesting dynamic in draft in these games, and I wanted to point out how G2 specifically had a really good sort of approach, and basically are one of the teams that set predefined criteria as to this is why this is better than this in draft, and this is why our draft is better, and this is why, and this is what tools we have to counter your sort of defenses. So it goes and it kind of shows itself in both the bans and how G2 set up the draft, but also revealing their information at specific times and in order to force those advantages. So key things to know here: the funny bans with the Ezreal ban, the Iron ban, and the Rumble ban being pretty standard, forcing basically removing one ban from Vitality in order to get the Skarner B1 for G2 Esports. So this ends up being an Ashe opener for G2, which I'm actually a fan of because it works in most comps. It has a lot of great setup in a lot of areas. It has really good matchups all around. There's not much wrong with this champion. It basically says G2 is revealing nothing in this case. And then this is where they take the information cues that Vitality give in terms of basically just the Karthus here, and they understand what they want their draft dynamic to be. So they're okay. They're comfortable locking in the Corki next, along with the Maokai as a facilitator. So Team Vitality, they go for the Renekton, which is also fine because I think top lane meta is a little bit funny at the moment. So going for something safe and keeping your cards as hidden as possible until later on is totally fine by me. It also gives them more resources to play around because Karthus is a champion that needs as many winning lanes as possible. You're basically establishing a strong side jungle win condition, which is a very unique meta to be around, especially with this full clear meta. And this is where it gets a little funny in the second phase, right? Of course, they leave the Yone open because Vitality, G2 are very comfortable with this matchup. You know why? Because now it's very clear that Vitality are intending to play out that matchup and go for the forward version, right? The backwards version, the more, I would say, more flexible version of this is to match poke, and that's why they banned out Ezreal, so that wouldn't be really possible. Because then if you could go various Ezreal, then Vitality actually have an out in order to get a lot of poke on the board, and then we can kind of answer it. Another version of this, I'm curious if teams are willing to do like things like Corki Ezreal actually, if there's like evolutions of that. But keep in mind the main things I'm looking at here are the Gragas Braum 4-5, because G2 were very patient in holding off their final picks until they know exactly when Vitality are revealed what they're going for. Then they can basically provide two best in slot picks for both of these roles and stabilize for their win condition. Now it's very easy for them to play for Corki Ashe. They just have to play front to back. Vitality's only option because of the Yone pick, although the matchup is favorable, quote unquote favorable for the Yone, their comp is revealed on 4. And it's very clear G2 could just cherry pick the exact right tools they need for the situation. And despite having a good start, it looks like all of a sudden, despite Vitality have decent lanes, they arguably win lanes and quote unquote win lane all 3, but G2 dilute the lanes so well with their picks, with the Braum pick completely neutralizing, with the Gragas pick completely neutralizing, they still are able to outscale contextually, right? Although champions scale per se, right? We have to remember contextually that sometimes you may scale individually as a champion, but if you get outscaled, then you don't really outscale, right? If you scale hard, but the enemy scales harder, you're not scaling. You have to really go for it. And that was kind of the name of the game here. And G2, the draft fundamentals are just there. And they understand and can pick the things in the meta that are strongest to them. And that's basically what's getting them a huge advantage in this draft. The whole game is Vitality's to lose. They have to force advantages and force fights into a comp that loves neutralizing your fights. Imagine being Yone, Varus, Renekton, and you have to engage onto a Braum. And although you have immobile carries and things like the Ashe, and maybe you can get some pressure in the early bits of the game, it's going to, before long, like the quirky poke's going to come in, the Ashe items are going to come in, and it's going to be really hard for your comp to really melt through that disgustingly tanky G2 frontline. And, you know, although G2 is really good at executing these types of things, they don't need to, because they're chilling. You know, Gragas is neutralizing Renekton, so all you have to do is wait. Braum is neutralizing the Varus Alistar, so it's like, yes, G2 could probably go for a different direction and, like, let's say be more aggressive, because you know they have it in them if they wanted to, but it's totally not required here because they can just sit back, relax, and just win the game slowly. They are not pressed at all, and I really like this draft overall. So hopefully that makes sense. I really like the way G2 approached this, and I'll catch you in the next draft analysis. See you guys.